Whew. So I did my first landing and it was rough, but I actually landed it. I almost did the same thing I did during my cold and dark mission, and oof, yeah, this was interesting. I went through everything.
In this lesson, we'll go over the basics of landing an F-16 in visual flight rules conditions using a straight-in approach. This will also be useful later for the overhead brake and instrument flight rules landing lessons. I have the lesson paused so we can set the aircraft up in preparation for the approach. Then we'll land the aircraft and shut it down. Press spacebar to continue.
I thought this was pretty cool.
Start by checking your fuel quantity on the fuel quantity indicator. Enough fuel should be remaining to land safely, but too much fuel can lengthen the landing roll and make stopping the aircraft much more difficult. You're fine here, but you may want to burn some fuel off if you return from a mission early. Also, verify no red is visible on the indicator needles that indicate a fuel imbalance. This should be corrected by transferring fuel with the engine feed knob on the fuel control panel before landing. Fuel is automatically balanced under normal conditions, so this should be very rare. Press spacebar to continue.
I just looked around for a little bit. I don't know why I highlighted this control. I'm guessing that's how you shift the fuel balance, I'm guessing. I looked around for a good second trying to understand what it was trying to ask of me.
Next, verify the landing light switch is in the up landing position. This will make your aircraft easier to see by the tower controllers or other pilots near the airfield, and provide illumination you need in dark conditions. Also, set the master arm and laser arm switches to off to save the weapon systems. Press spacebar to continue.
Go away. Help me see my airspeeds and stuff like that whenever I'm not looking directly at anything. He's probably still looking down there. I started playing with the master arms to see if that would go away.
Now verify your attitude references match. The pitch and roll attitude on your HUD, the ADI and standby ADI should agree. Left-click the standby ADI knob to cage and uncage if recalibration is necessary. Then, on the altimeter, verify the current airfield altimeter setting of 2992 is set. You can rotate the pressure setting knob with the mouse wheel to select a new setting if it becomes necessary. Also, verify the altitude displayed on the HUD matches the altitude on the altimeter in both the electrical and pneumatic altimeter modes within plus or minus 75 feet. Set the altimeter back to electric mode when you're done, and press spacebar to continue.
Didn't bother because things
Next,
matched up.
stow the targeting pod camera if installed by selecting the targeting pod control page on the MFD and selecting standby. This is done prior to takeoff and landing to prevent foreign object damage to components. We have no pod installed for this lesson, so press spacebar to continue.
Yeah, they tell me how to do that, but there's nothing.
A 2.5 degree glide slope is standard for an F-16 final approach. To measure a glide slope angle, reference the flight path marker on the HUD in relation to the pitch ladder. Now when you're ready, press spacebar and I'll unpause the lesson. After the lesson is unpaused, reduce your throttle and fly through the gates ahead. I'll talk you through the approach as we go.
Yeah, they should have gone ahead and just put a target pod on there just so we knew what it looked like. But yeah. So it's my throttle.
Verify your airspeed is below 300 knots and lower the landing gear by moving the landing gear control handle down. Do this by clicking on the handle or pressing the G key. The trailing edge flaps will automatically lower as the gear extend. Once the gear and flaps are down, check that all 3 wheels down lights are illuminated green on the left side of the instrument panel next to the gear handle. This confirms the landing gear are down and locked. An additional pitch ladder at 2.5 degrees will be added to the HUD when the landing gear are extended. You're on glide slope when both the 2.5 degree pitch ladder and flight path marker are placed at the end of the runway. Press spacebar to continue. Now open the speed brakes using the switch on your throttle and increase throttle to maintain speed if necessary. The slightly higher throttle setting required with the increased drag from the speed brakes will keep you from constantly bumping against the idle stop on approach. This is also one less thing you'll have to remember to do after touchdown. Press spacebar to continue. Keep flying through the gates and reduce speed to achieve the on-speed angle of attack of 11 degrees. This is the AOA that will provide the best approach speed and handling characteristics for your aircraft's weight. Use the throttle to adjust your speed and glide path and pitch trim to adjust your AOA. 2 or 3 clicks of nose-up trim with a trim head on your stick will help maintain you near 11 degrees. As a guide, place the flight path marker on the HUD at the top of the AOA bracket on the HUD. The bracket ranges from 11 degrees at the top to 15 degrees at the bottom. The AOA index lies to the left of the HUD frame will differ from other aircraft in that the bottom yellow chevron will still be illuminated when the on-speed AOA is achieved. The AOA indicator at the bottom center of the instrument panel also displays AOA. Use the first part of this approach to practice stabilized on-speed flight.
Yeah, so I didn't listen to like half of that because I was more focused on maintaining the correct glide slope and making sure I could keep my aircraft from falling out of the sky and get that bracket to come up to my velocity vector and match them up. I knew I was way off by the time I got there.
At this point, you should be on speed and on glide slope. The 2.5 degree pitch ladder on the HUD and the flight path marker should be placed at the end of the runway. This is the most challenging part coming up, so exit the mission and try again if things don't go exactly as planned. For now though, continue on your approach.
Yeah, my glide slope was off. So I adjusted by placing my velocity vector now on the runway until they lined up again. And then I was just going to reduce speed to get the proper AOA. I think toward like right here in the next few seconds I started to use the trim like I would for the Hornet to see if it would help. Yeah, right now I'm using the trimmer head.
Now when we're over the overrun, the portion of the runway before the primary surface starts, shift the flight path marker forward to a point 300 to 500 feet down the runway. Gently pull back on the stick to flare and reduce the descent rate, but don't level off. Pull the throttle back to idle and touch down with a maximum AOA of 13 degrees. More than 15 degrees during the landing rollout may cause the speed brakes or engine nozzle to contact the runway, so use gentle stick inputs to avoid over-controlling the aircraft.
At this point I was just deciding to go ahead and do a touch and go, because I knew I'd messed up and I wasn't going to be able to engage the nose wheel steering in time to actually get this thing to stop. Boom, I touched. Throttle all the way forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
Maintain 13 degrees nose up for aero braking until your airspeed is below 100 knots. Use the gun cross and pitch ladder in the HUD as a guide. Reduce back stake pressure and lower the nose wheel to the runway. Open the speed brakes fully and maintain full aft stick for maximum braking effectiveness. Apply moderate to heavy braking to slow the aircraft and maintain track down the center line with the rudder.
The issue that made me commit to that touch and go was the fact that the whole time I was rolling, I was attempting to engage in nose wheel steering so that I could go ahead and like point the toes real quick, because what was going to happen is it was going to disengage the brakes by pointing the toes, and then when I released, it would just fully apply the brakes and I'd slow to a stop without even having to try. And the only thing I'd have to do is use a little bit of rudder input to keep me straight down the runway, which is a little bit easier than trying to do that with the Hornet, where my rudder controls are actually set up correctly somehow. But I mean, I made it work, and I make it work with the Hornet, and I actually land with the Hornet. For this thing, I can land, but like it's rough. Here I am, just trying to maintain level and get a decently like tight turn out of this. As you can see, I'm very close to the ground. I'm within 1,000 feet at on my final approach. Yep. At the end of the turn, boom, and I'm 200 feet under 1,000. I'm establishing that glide slope again. As I begin to look at it and get back on track. Seeing where I'm at. Am I too low or am I too high while I'm turning in? And I thought, okay, I'm a little bit low. And if you look at my throttle input, I'm just barely up. I'm barely past idle. Barely past it. Alright, I'm just gonna fly it level and straight on the runway until things line up, or until I feel like things are about to line up. And I'm looking at the glide slope marker instead of my velocity vector. I'm also looking at the terrain to make sure I don't scrape anything on the way in. At this point, I see the velocity vector start to come online, and I'm like, good. And now I'm all worried about the AOA. More trim. I let off the trim because I'm really close, and I just start to backstick it. And wow. Like, I didn't flare as much because I didn't want to like slam myself down, but that was still pretty smooth, and I slowed down pretty quick too. Here we got 90, 80, but I don't have my, yep, it's on. Oof. It's off. I don't know why it went off. I don't know why it disengaged while I was rolling. It's a control issue, but I went ahead and stopped.
Okay, well done. Continue to taxi down the runway and take the next taxiway to the left. Only engage nose wheel steering when below 30 knots unless it's required earlier to prevent departure from the runway. Now that the aircraft is safely back on the ground, it's time to start powering down systems and preparing for shutdown. These tasks may be performed as you taxi. Some airfields also have an arm-de-arm area you can pull into to complete the tasks if desired. Press spacebar when you're ready to continue and we'll have a look at those.
Yeah. I didn't even taxi back on. I think I went like another 100 feet like right off. I was trying to continue to just to go ahead and engage the nose wheel steering. It's weird. Sometimes it responds, sometimes it doesn't. I apply the pressure with the toes, and I think it's when I try to use it with the toe brakes, it just releases. It just cuts off on me, and I don't know how to configure that right now. But in summary, I can get up into the sky, I can fly around, fuck the master arm, but I can't. I don't know how to use my weapons. I can land now, somewhat. I can crash land, absolutely, but to a complete and perfect stop straight and on the straight and narrow? Nah, not really. Taxiing is, ugh, I can barely taxi right now, mainly because of tricycle, the tricycle landing gear make it so easy to tip over with them being so narrowly placed. I mean, when I really look at the fuselage here in comparison to the F-22 and really think about this cockpit, I get the idea that it's actually really narrow. Like, here's your first landing gear, two great big two wheels like that, and then just like within 5 feet, or two more sets of wheels. That's within 5 feet. Like, that's a very narrow triangle. Your center of gravity is like, I think, a little further back than directly halfway in the center of that triangle, I think. And yeah, it's just so easy to just bam bam slam yourself on the ground. Um, but that's cool, and I will probably do something like the overhead brake pattern. I don't feel like I need to do that one because it's basically the same as I would do with the F-18, and I do that pattern all the time. Even when I want to do straight ins, it just turns into overhead brake as I come in too hot, or it's or don't look like I'm gonna put myself down in the right area, or my AOA is kind of messed up. Upfront controls introduction. That'll be something I'll probably tackle next. SMS page CCIP with unguided bombs. Post designated CCIP with high drag bombs, and CCRP with cluster bombs. CCRP. I'm not sure if that's auto. I think that's auto bombing, or that's yeah, I think that's auto bombing. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. But I think that's enough F-16 for today. Make sure I didn't do anything weird. Yeah.